No secret that Reddit's one of the most popular sites on the internet. It's often referred to as the front page of the internet, hosting almost 52 million daily users, the population equivalent of South Korea. One of the unique points of Reddit is the fact that the avatars and the users have the option to remain anonymous throughout all their discussions and engagements. The fact you're anonymous means you can talk of things that maybe are a little bit more jarring and vulnerable than you could just shout at the end of your street.
Good morning, my neighbors! Hey, fuck you!
So if Facebook and Instagram are image and illusion based, a picture of your holiday or you with a filter on, or maybe what you're eating for dinner, as much as the site can be very, very positive, a multitude of different discussions and communities, well then Reddit is the dark and gritty aspects to human interaction and human experience. There is one thing I've always found interesting inside of this platform, and that is the amount of people that seek advice. Take for example in relationships, and they jump onto these subreddits, pluck up the courage to ask a question about their current situation or current problem, and then open out this problem to thousands and sometimes millions of different users for them to offer up their opinion or perspective. But I found interesting in the psychology of the people that do this is that when they do catch traction and these posts do trend and they do get more upvotes, people expose them a little bit more, that anonymity part is almost gone then. Because the more people that see it, there's more of a chance of that person you're talking about seeing it, and then your cover's been blown. So what they do is they just fucking delete the post. They delete the post with no working action plan of sorting the problem out. The girlfriend or the boyfriend or the person that potentially they're referring to in this story is gonna find out, and it's like, shit, I didn't expect it to get this big. I just wanted a little bit of advice. And I'm always interested in the psychology of that person after that event. So stage one was you had a problem. Stage two was you had no one in your life that maybe you could bounce this problem or reflect this problem against. Stage three is you apply it then to the internet in hopes that someone will give you some advice. You get the thousands or hundreds of people replying with their 2 cents, and then all of a sudden we've got to this stage where they're overwhelmed. But also the fact that they're in no better position to solve the problem they initially went in with. It's like the equivalent, if this wasn't the daily web and you was to be sitting at home and you just put a problem out there, and all of a sudden you heard all these knocks on the door, and each one of those 1,000 people or 100 people knocked on your door and gave your opinion for the problem you have.
How, she wondered, could she find such hope in the most shameful part of her?
You've had 5 people knock and say, you're the problem, you're the problem. Another 5 knock and say, dump that fucker. Another one dump just to troll you and take the piss out of your situation. That the problem becomes almost insurmountable, almost becomes amplified.
Mr. Udo, I'd like to speak to you, please.
Let me do this by myself. Yes!
Now, of course, for everyone that there is that, there's some actual genuine advice where people try and give perspective or guidance. But you've got to remember, it's a numbers game. So for every good piece of advice there's someone that's obviously triggered or someone that's had a similar experience projecting what this individual should do in this scenario, which isn't always helpful if that's not your state of play. And I should imagine the psychology of that person pressing delete is they're no better off. They've just got all these other opinions and thoughts running through their head about the situation, and they're no clearer on sorting it out.
I can't stand it anymore. I've got to get out of here. I've got to get out of here.
Calm down. Get a hold of yourself.
Stewardess, please let me handle this.
I've got to
Calm down. Now get back to your seat. I'll take care of this. Calm down. Calm down. Get a hold of yourself.
Doctor, you're one on the phone. Everything's gonna be all right. Please.
Sister, please, I'll handle this.
It's like 90% of these issues that are coming up could be resolved through 3 pillars. 1 is reflection, 2 is evaluation, 3 is looking at it in forms of communication. So if you're having issues in your relationship, my boyfriend, my girlfriend doesn't want to do this or they've done that, should you really be asking the opinions of 1,000 perfect strangers or imperfect strangers? Or does that communication line need to be established between the person that the problem has actually been identified with? I've never understood that. I've never understood the logic behind that. So you're asking someone else on the internet about the problems that you're experiencing, about a person that potentially is inside of your life, and you're not asking them. They're not consulting on it, or they're not made clear that there's an issue. But who is made clear is the perfect and beautiful strangers online, who through their own volition and through their own compassion may share something that might enlighten you and may help. But on the flip side of that, it can also just jumble you up even more. Are you communicating with the problem or communicating with yourself? And have you got the skills, the emotional maturity, or even just sometimes the perspective to look at the situation, review it, and wonder what you actually want? Because outside of the problem, you're the one that's got to solve it. Because no matter all those strangers on the internet coming in to help you and to offer an opinion, they're not going to come and sort the situation out for you. So ultimately, you're the one that's got to sort it. So if you have got 20 different opinions telling you what to do, but they don't sit comfortably with you, then you're in a no better position when you started. And it's so interesting because something as vulnerable, something as visceral as relationships, you know, that's sometimes where the biggest heartache of a human being will come. Cuts and bruises, you know, scars somewhat heal, but our interpersonal dynamics and our communication between each other ultimately causes the biggest scars among human beings. And it's interesting that this particular forums like this, people go there in this vulnerable, receptive state to want to get advice and probably leave there thinking, oh my God, why the hell did I open myself up to it? I'm more confused than when I started. But remember, most of our issues come from our inability to self-reflect and to ask the questions about what we want from the situation or what is the ideal situation. And then thirdly is our communication. How we're going to vocalise what we want, what we're not having, how we're going to instill those boundaries, how we're going to close something off. It doesn't come from thousands or sometimes millions of different opinions all coming streamlined right into your nanny until you can't think anymore. And it's almost sensory overload. It's paralysis by analysis. This idea that too much thinking sometimes halts action, and it's really the action that's going to stop or prevent or resolve a situation, even if that action is just communication.